Joe Siracusa, a professor of security and diplomacy at Curtin University. He joins us live from Perth in Australia. We haven't had much of a reaction yet from the West. Why do you think that is?
Well, because I think in many ways, good morning, by the way, I think in many ways it's pretty obvious what's going on now. Netanyahu has returned from Washington to 56 standing ovations in Congress, a very important meeting with President Trump in Mar-a-Lago in Florida. And quite obviously, he reckons he's got 5 months to finish off Hamas, particularly the leadership. And decapitating the command and control is no small thing, as a matter of fact. I reckon that that Netanyahu has the green light from Washington to do this. President Biden has nothing to say anymore about this. He has no moral authority. I'm sure the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, was brought in on this, and he's made it very clear today aboard that ship in the Philippines that if Iran attacks Israel, the United States will attack Iran. That's the end of that story, so I don't want to go down that way. Look, I think killing foreign nationals on foreign soil is a very bad day's work at the office. I mean, this idea that there are normal rules out there means nothing at all. I mean, what this tells me is there are no red lines. They've all been crossed, as a matter of fact. This is a blow to the peace negotiation, the hostages. I think Netanyahu has given up on the hostages and couldn't make it any clearer by assassinating the lead, the Hamas lead here. So I think there are some very important signals here. And what really bothers me this morning is I heard from some fellow from Tehran that an Israeli warplane penetrated Iranian airspace and sent a cruise missile through Haniyeh's bedroom window. I mean, you realize the intelligence that is required to do that on the ground? I mean, the Iranian intelligence services would be scrambling right now to figure out where the leak is, because what it really means is anybody could be next.
And Joe, in terms of the reaction from Iran, how significant do you think that will be? Do you think that Israel will now be concerned about that reaction?
Well, because Israel has the United States backing, I don't think it's worried about too much from the reaction from Iran. I mean, the last time Iran, I think, pitched 300 missiles towards Israel, none of them landed anywhere in particular. So I don't think they're particularly worried. I think Netanyahu reckons that he has 5 months, that is between now and the American inauguration in January 2025. I think he has a little bit of time now to finish this up, and he's racing the clock right now, and he's coming in for the kill. He wants to make sure that Hamas has no leadership. He wants to make sure that they are destroyed as much as possible, as a matter of fact, and that President Biden, which was going to put the brakes on him through Secretary of State Blinken, has now been neutralized because President Biden is out of the picture, and Kamala Harris isn't going to enter this contest in a particularly big hurry. So I think Netanyahu's racing the clock to finish off his enemies. I don't think the United States will do a thing about it except support Israel in the event of a conflict with Iran. And then, of course, everything in the Middle East will be at great peril. And I think this is a very dangerous point, not in the sense that what is happening, but in the sense that there is no retrieving what is happening. You know, there's no reverse on this anymore. It's all forward ahead. And so that's what I worry about. There's no reverse.
And Joe, the Turkish Foreign Ministry says the assassination aims to spread the war to a regional level. Do you think there is now a real risk of that happening?
I think that's a true statement. And actually, I think in many, many respects, it is a regional war. I mean, Hezbollah has been involved in this since October 8th. The Houthis have been lobbing their own missiles in the Red Sea and the rest of it. And Hamas, of course, has been at war. And of course, we also have the militias in Iraq killing those Americans in Jordan, of all places. So I think, in a sense, it already is a regional war. I think what the Turkish ministry means to say that it becomes a thorough nuclear war with, a regional war in a very short period of time, which it can. And of course, this is a very dangerous time for everybody in Washington to be thinking about this. And I was just there a couple weeks ago, and I was amazed at how few people are thinking about the implications of what happens next in the Middle East. And of course, when Netanyahu got all those standing ovations in Congress, I couldn't imagine what people were doing, you know, what they were thinking. You know, and you hear this terrible news this morning. At the same time, there's this report from Hamas, from the Palestinian people about health people that there's a poliomyelitis outbreak in Gaza. I mean, can anything get worse for these people than what's going on right now?
And in terms of the ceasefire negotiations, which were already, not going too well, what does this mean now going forward for that?
I think they're done. I don't think Netanyahu wants to pursue them any further. I think this is his way of saying that we're not really interested in this. And of course, when you kill the lead negotiator for negotiations and hostage release, you've sort of sent a signal to the other guy that you're no longer interested in this pursuit of what you're doing. There are probably not enough hostages alive to do anything about it right now. And I think Netanyahu's given up on the hostages in the sense that he's not going to reverse his mission in order to save a few people, because to save a few people, you have to have a ceasefire. And he's not about to do that.
And obviously, this assassination happened on Iranian soil. What do you think this says about the security services in Iran?
Oh, I think Iran has got more holes. Iranian defense has more holes than Swiss cheese. I don't think they have much of a defense system at all. I mean, we have a plane that entered their airspace and launched a rocket or a missile through a bedroom window in downtown Tehran. What does that say? It says there is no air defense. The Israelis can enter this space anytime they want. I mean, there's no Iron Dome in Iran, to my knowledge. There might be something like that, et cetera. And of course, Iran's big backers are not coming to the party. I mean, Russia's going to stay back, and other great powers that could help them are staying back. And so I think Iran is open to attack. And that's the reason why they hesitate here, because if they were to come out swinging in defense of Hamas and others and actually go to war, technically at war with Israel, I think Big Brother, that is the United States, would enter the conflict very quickly. There are 30,000 American troops and ships in the areas, and so they're ready to go to war. America's been ready to go to war since October 7th, and so there are no surprises there for the military. There'd be a surprise for the American politicians and for the American public, because they have no idea what awaits them.
And Joe, as you say, it will be a careful balance for Iran to work out what to do next. What do you think a proportionate reaction from them looks like?
Well, I think they ought to pause right now. Not exactly take the high ground, but they should do a little bit of thinking. They should let Washington and Jerusalem stew in their juice for a while by not doing anything for about 4 or 5 weeks and sort of shoring up your other interests. You will put the Israelis on the back foot. What Netanyahu, of course, is expecting is the Iranians to come out of the gate within 2 or 3 days. If they hold back and calculate and work the political angle here, I mean, they do have the sympathy of half the world. I mean, half the world does not like the idea of killing foreign nationals on their soil. So, you know, they could play this for all their work. But I think if they just sort of massage the situation, hang back and use a little careful diplomacy here, I think they can get more than charging out of the gate.
And in terms of back to the sort of response from Western nations, do you think their response is going to be crucial in preventing an all-out war from breaking out?
Well, the Western nations and NATO and Britain and the others will say that they hope this goes no further. The United States has 2 lines in a single sentence. Number 1 is we'll come to the aid of the Israelis if they're attacked by Iran, but we hope it doesn't come to that. So what does that mean? That means, you know, if you don't do anything, we won't do anything. So if I were an Iranian official right now, I would weigh very carefully what the trigger is for the Americans. And the trigger is if Iran declares war, officially a war. I mean, they're unofficially at war with Israel anyway. But if they hit Israel with the kitchen sink, the Americans will come and play, and then I think the game will be over. There is nothing about the Iranian Islamic Republic that is carved in stone. I mean, these guys have been fighting for their survival since 1979, and, you know, nothing's changed.
And with the US's sort of immediate response, do you think that they will publicly be throwing their support behind Israel at this point?
Oh, yeah. The Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, has already announced on the ship in the Philippines that exactly what I just said, that the United States will come to the aid of Iran, the aid of Israel if it's attacked by Iran. Couldn't make it clearer. The United States is all in, and he couldn't make it clearer to me that Joe Biden is out of the picture. Anthony Blinken is out of the picture. All the politicians. This is now a military problem that's going to try to solve come up with a military solution. So this has gone very far along down the road. And from my own study of history, it looks like it wouldn't take much to trigger something further. On the other hand, the people in the Middle East have been playing this game for 75 years. And I can tell you this, they play it very well.
And Joe, what needs to happen now with the ceasefire negotiations? It seems so far away from anything happening after this significant development. What do you think next steps need to be taken at this point?
Well, I tell you what, if I were an opponent of Israel right now, I would be stepping on the accelerator in the United Nations. I would try to get international world opinion to get the Israelis to cease and desist what they're doing, to maybe even force the Iranians. The Iranians might even like a little pressure here to come to a negotiating table. They don't want to get involved any further in this. So I think it behooves people to turn to the only organization in the world that counts when you want an international solution to an international problem, and that is the United Nations. That's why it was created. That is why so many nations have invested so much blood and tears into the organization. And I think that is the proper approach to this. And we need a multilateral approach to solve this problem. It can no longer be solved just by Iran, the United States, and Israel. It requires a global or a United Nations approach. And, you know, I have great hopes for that.
And Haniyeh's assassination has been described as devastating for Palestinians. What do you think this means for them on the ground right now? How are they feeling?
Oh, they feel kind of miserable about this. Look, I know that people get very excited about being martyred and all that, but you know, this guy had a role to play. His time had come too soon. You know, you can rationalize people leaving the scene like this, but this would dishearten Palestinians who were looking for a champion. It's quite clear that this particular leader of Hamas, this political leader, was going to try to get them some justice in the court of world opinion. Though let's not forget that he had been, Haniyeh had been declared international convict by the ICC. He was on the same terrible list as Netanyahu, so he wasn't out of the woods yet. But I think a lot of ordinary Palestinians, whether they're Hamas or not, would be disheartened by what's going on for two reasons. Number one, they've lost a champion, and number two, as long as we're spending time, as we are this afternoon or this morning, trying to figure out what to do next. All the great problems in Gaza, all the health and food insecurity problems continue on. And so the Palestinian people suffer more and more because we can't solve the problem at the other end.
And Joe, how significant a figure was Haniyeh for the Palestinian people?
Well, I think he was a central figure. I mean, he was the political face of Hamas. He could travel throughout the Middle East. He could represent the Palestinian cause. He could go where he wanted. People had to answer his calls, as a matter of fact. So he was their, in many ways, their legitimate representative. They're not their military leaders. I mean, their military leaders do not have that kind of cachet in political circles around the world. I think, you know, keep in mind, a guy like Haniyeh is always on the verge of becoming quite normal, legitimized after the conflict is over. There have been a lot of people like himself who have found themselves quite in regular discourse with other nations around the world. I mean, he was the face of what Palestine could be. But tonight, Palestine has no real future because they've lost one of the few leaders that they've had. And in my lifetime, I've seen a number of Palestinian leaders pass away or get killed or something like this. And this just sets them back on the road to oblivion, because without a formal or without a forceful political leader, there can be no political or diplomatic solution. So, you know, they are stepping back again, and they're trying to deal with day-to-day security, which has become almost impossible for them.
Okay, Joe Siracusa, live from Perth. Thank you for all of your insights there.